us in participating in this event. Ask an investor anything. Ask an investor anything. And of course, we are the Founder Institute. And my name is Ajuma Ataguba, and I'm the Managing Director of Founder Institute here in Abuja. Founder Institute is the world's largest network that helps entrepreneurs become fundable. And we're present in over 100 countries around the world. And we have helped over 7,000 startups, become fundable and well established. And we have helped this alumni raise funding in the region of $1.8 billion, and they have a portfolio value of over $3 billion. Headquarters is in Silicon Valley, and the organization was founded by Adio Resi and Jonathan Grisham. And since starting the program in 2009, Founder Institute discovered the talents that are here in Nigeria and came into the country towards the end of 2019. And so I've been holding forth with my team here since 2020. And between Lagos and Abuja, we have portfolio companies of close to 150 portfolio companies that are fundable. So it's a warm and great privilege to have mentors who are joining, panelists who are joining us. These are top VCs, world-renowned VCs, and it gives us great pleasure to welcome you once again. Also to the attendees, I see the numbers are rising. We have about 24 of you thus far, and more are joining, so you're all welcome. So why are we having this event? What's our goal? What's the objective? So lots of startups are always trying to figure out how to raise funding. And so we hope that through this event, for those who are fundraising or just want to learn about fundraising, you'll be able to gain a comprehensive understanding of startup funding. And it's an opportunity to explore the complexities of securing investment. But here you're guided here today by this top, distinguished investors who have done this over and over again. And like I said earlier, the event is designed to help individuals seeking funding from angel investors and VCs, that's venture capital. So you gain essential knowledge about the fundraising process. So we ask you to prepare your questions and engage with these leading experts who will provide valuable insights and strategies. And if your startup is approaching the stage of seeking funding, then this workshop is a great opportunity to access expert guidance. So you're going to be learning about the different types of investors and startup capital available, and then the key metrics that investors need to see before investing, and how founders or startups should navigate the current investment landscape. So that's what you expect, to hear and, gain from these top experts that we have, lined up here. And so on the panel this afternoon, we have Mr. Dr. Suleiman, who is a supporter and developer of talent with the objective to help to create future generations of business leaders. He has a wealth of experience in leadership and governance, and he currently serves on the boards of several prominent companies and nonprofit organizations, including AXA Nigeria, Cadbury Nigeria's Secure ID, and Parthian Partners, where he's the chairman of, a whole lot of these companies. Chairman Secure ID, Chairman Cadbury Nigeria, Chairman Parthian Partners, Chairman InterSwitch, chairman of the Trust Council of Corona Schools, non-executive director of Green Springs School, Nigeria, board chairman of New Horizons, and was chairman of Cornerstone. So the list is long. We'll share his LinkedIn profile in the chat box and you can follow him. And I've been personally mentored by him for close to 2 decades, so it's a rare privilege getting him onto this program. And we're indeed very, very grateful hearing from having someone of this you know, renowned knowledge and expertise with us. Also with us is Mokwe Abudu, who is the managing partner at Afri Global VCs. She is an experienced business management and operations professional with proven track record in consulting, skilled in business process adaptation and planning, and regional expansion and market analysis. She's an alumni of the VC Lab, FIVC Lab. And so she has footprints, of course, with Afri Global VC, where she's the managing partner, Knight Ventures, where she's the founder, and has had footprints with Crockstone Development as a director, Maxtivity as a co-founder, Nexon Business Services as the vice president, Head Group, Here's Holdings, and many, many more. We'll also share her LinkedIn profile. And also with us is Chris Foltz, who is the Managing Director of Responsible Solutions and also an entrepreneur in residence with the Founder Institute. He's a renowned transformation strategist, startup mentor, and Managing Director of Responsible Solutions, which is a Silicon Valley-based global strategy firm. He advises founders, industry leaders, policymakers across 6 continents. And he has defied the odds and named as the Institute for Real Growth, IRG 100, which is an annual cohort of the top 100 chief marketing officers and change agents in the world. So his footprints include being an ERI of Founder Institute, Dream VC Advisor, Loyal VC Advisor, Board of Directors, Indian Hemp Research Foundation, at Startup Mentor at Techstars, Advisory Board member, Cloverleaf, and many, 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 many more. So his LinkedIn profile is also being shared with in the chat box. So you're all welcome. And so the panelists will be making their presentations, and then we'll be having the Q&A sessions thereafter. So do relax and get ready to put your questions down and engage. And so welcome everyone once again, and great pleasure. So I'll hand over to Shegun, who is Director of Partnerships, to continue with the rest of the program. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Lady. Thank you, panelists. It's so wonderful to have us, this minds join us today. We'll be going on straight to the session, and we'll be starting off immediately with the panelists having a 10-minute presentation each. And thereafter, we'll move on to the Q&A session, where we'll now, the roundtable discussion, where we'll have the Q&A. So we'll have the Q&As at the panelist presentation, starting with Mr. Dr. Suleiman, then afterwards, Ms. Mokwe Abudu, and finally, Mr. Chris Foltz. So in that order, we could set the ball rolling. Mr. Dr. Suleiman, sir, it's on to you, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody who is attending this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. And Ajuma asked me, Ajuma, I can't say no to Ajuma, so here I am. So I really don't have much of a presentation to make rather than just what I call opening remarks, because my understanding was going to be more of an interactive session where participants will have a chance to ask questions, and through the question and answer session, a lot to be learned and so on. And my background was in consulting, management consulting. Had a career that spanned over 30 years with a company that was variously known as Arthur Andersen Consulting, Accenture, and I retired from all that in 2005. And I decided that I will continue to do outside of consulting what I thought we did very well in consulting, which is basically identify young people, create an enabling environment for them to grow and nurture and so on, and develop leaders through them. I think we did that very well as a firm. And this time around, I said, I would try and continue that same thing through enterprise. Because what I saw were two things. Number one was a country bristling with talent, a lot of talent in this country. And also a country that lacked practically everything. I always say that Nigeria is a country that has yet to be built. I've made that statement for almost 30 years now. The country has yet to be built. It's still a work in progress. And the other thing I've always believed is that it's going to take Nigerians to build Nigeria. I mean, we will need help. We will need foreign investors and foreign capital and foreign know-how. But the real hard work is going to be done by Nigerians. And therefore, it's a challenge for all of us to develop the people that would build this country. And that's basically what I set out to do in my own little way. And what I do basically is identify young people who have bright, bankable business ideas that solve problems that confront us every day, and trying to just get them started. Give them a bit of money, but a lot of access to my time at no cost. That's what I've done. I've done quite a bit of that. Of course, in that process, we learned a whole lot of lessons. There are a lot of things I would do differently if I was going to do today. There are a lot of things I did back then. We're talking about 15, 18 years now. I probably won't do anymore unless somebody else do that. And the other thing we've done is also create, what I'll call an ecosystem of like-minded people who are interested in working with young people, working with startups, hand-holding them, coaching them, mentoring them, and so on. And that led us to start the Lagos Angel Network about 12 years ago, about 10, 11, 12 years ago. And it's grown. It's through that I think we get more people interested. Many people know more about angel investing now than they ever did at that time. And of course, that's Lagos Angel Network has fostered Rising Tide Africa, which is women. We're also getting women involved, in the whole investing ecosystem and all that. Put money in, many of them put money in, VC funds, private equity funds, and so on. Made some money, but lost quite a lot of money, as we see in this thing. It's a case of you win some, lose some. The prayer point always is that the ones that win will offset the losses that you made from the other one. But in terms of head counts, of course, you lose far, far, far more than you gain. And I think the batting average, what we always tell people who try to recruit into venture capital angel investments, that we should aim to do 20 investments over a period of, say, 10 years. And in that process, you diversify your portfolio, hedge your bets, and just pray. And of those 20, maybe one or two will be, fly with successes. 2 or 3 or 4 that will return decent capital, and you're going to lose your capital in at least half of them. Be prepared to that. And what we always advise, therefore, is that you put in this class of asset, it's an asset class, that, money that you can afford to lose. I always say, don't put your rent money on it. Don't put your children's school fees on it. And don't bet the house on venture capital investments. It's just, and that it should also be part of a wider portfolio of investments. So it's a case of kind of broadening and diversifying your portfolio. So that's basically what we've done. Like I said, we learned a lot of lessons. Now, with respect to my own philosophy, my starting point, as Aruma introduced, what Aruma said when he was introducing me, is the entrepreneur. Because my own goal is to develop leadership for the country, those who are going to build this country, and who are going to do it on the back of enterprise. That is, people who see problems and think solutions. But one thing we're very good at in Nigeria is criticizing all that is wrong about Nigeria. And I always remind young people that, first of all, you are going to have to solve the problem. Nobody is going to solve it for you. And also, when you see a problem, the flip is a double-sided coin. The flip side of that coin is a solution. The problem waiting for a solution. And in solving it, you can make a lot of money. That's how economies are built. You satisfy unmet demands, you solve unsolved problems, make things better, faster, cheaper, more efficient. And that's basically how you create value and how you make money and all that. So that's basically been my philosophy. I start with individual, and I'm looking for people who see this problem, who have ideas about how to solve them, have a bit of organizational skills in terms of how to organize businesses, how to build teams, and of course, have a decided preference for working in teams, because there's very little you can do working alone. And I know, of course, it's not a skill that everybody has in abundance, that is putting together a team of highly, effective people trying to solve a problem together. So that's that you have a team and so on. The other thing, of course, I look for are people who can persevere, because the journey is long and rough. So you have to have the stamina, the staying power, and all that. You have to. The other thing also I look for is people who can delay their gratification. That's very important, because some of these businesses will seem like they will do very well from the very beginning, and sometimes it gets into people's heads. And therefore, being able to manage success is just as important as achieving the success itself. So I'm looking for people who think long-term, who have a clear vision of what they want to do, and are willing to put in the hard work that it takes, to do it. And of course, integrity for me is very important. You're looking for people who have the integrity to honor their commitments, to be fair to everybody they deal with, and to know that if they take money from investors, those investors have rights, they have expectations, and some of those rights and experience are shrouded in law, which means because many people don't understand that all of this what they were doing is the context of law and order. That is, we make a commitment, we take money from somebody, that person has a stake in that business, has rights, has expectations, has a need to know what's going on. So those are the things I look for. And of course, like I said, management you can learn, which is why I tend to prefer to back people who have worked in a structured environment before. They have the experience of working in a structured environment, and therefore they know how businesses operate and all the method to the madness of running a business, and so on, planning, reporting, budgeting, performance management, the whole works. They have an idea. They may not have done it because they are young by definition. They haven't really done management, but at least they've operated in a system where it's done. So they know how it's done, and therefore they appreciate that. So basically, that's the kind of things I'm looking for. And of course, I've done quite a number of investments. Some have worked, many haven't worked. But one thing we do, of course, is that we all learn. For me, it's a learning journey. It remains a learning journey. And therefore, I really don't feel too bad if the business doesn't work. But I hope that the entrepreneur or entrepreneurs have learned a lesson or two about life and investing, and they'll go on to apply this in their next venture. And of course, those of us who back them also would have learned a lesson or two. And so what to do, what not to do, what to look out for the next time we're going to do this. So that's basically what I'd like to say by way of opening remarks. I don't know whether that serves as the presentation you expect.
It surely does, sir. And from that, I don't know if we did, but I picked my aces here. I see people will see problems and come up with ideas to solve them. I mean, that's what investors are looking for. People who will persevere because the journey is long. People who can delay gratification. I mean, you don't have a group of people like you talk and you don't take notes. I mean, I just have to take note and internalize. Thank you so much, sir. It was so enriching. Now we'll be taking more from you during the discussion session. Ms. Mope Abudu, it's over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here. And permit me to say it's a real pleasure, first of all, to be speaking alongside the most, Dr. who I'm a student of as well. He was my chairman at some point, so it really is an honor. Good afternoon, sir. It's very hard to come after the legend himself. I might as well just pack up and go. But in addition to that, I'll probably just add my own few nuggets. My foray into investment was from a different point. My background is in finance, but I was really more on the operations side. So I was really the doer. And I had done the corporate thing in both the UK, in America, in Europe, and then here in Nigeria. So I'd done, quite a bit in financial institutions and headed quite a lot of large positions, but more from an operations point of view. So, I'm coming from a point where I am the executionist. I execute, and that's what's really, very, very integral to what I look for when it comes to investing. Now, on this area, what we do find is a lot of entrepreneurs are passionate, but I dare say being passionate does not always translate into having a bankable business idea. And sometimes we really, really need to draw the line there, particularly when it comes to seeking investments. And for me, what I've found is you need to be very objective about the opportunity that you're being provided with, and be able to see, really, is there a business in it? And, in plain terms, what really is a business? You have an idea, you have a solution, but are people willing and able to pay for it? Are you really, really able to get customers? And I try to engage a lot of founders that you really don't need sycophants, and don't get carried away with sycophants or followers. It only becomes a customer when someone is really willing to pay for it. That means there is value perceived, and there is value where you're actually able to gain, a continuum of customers. And that is what, as an investor, you're really looking out for. We're not looking for a flash in the pan. We're not looking for a one-time scenario. We're looking for a continuous opportunity that would be looked at and will be able to get returns. So as founders, it's okay to identify, a solution to a challenge that you have envisaged, but really, is it a business? And I think that is where I normally come from. So for me, 3 critical ingredients, how visionary are you? How loud and how much of an audacity to dream do you have? What's your strategy to actually get it? But I am very, very much interested in how you would execute. And execution comes, from, the environment in which you have been working. It will show whether you have that tenacity, and that's something that Dr. actually just said as well. How much of a staying power do you have to execute, to continually grind to make sure that that vision becomes a reality? So it's very, very important that we're able to see that as a trait, as a characteristic in a founder when we're looking to invest. But there are also, very critical things that I would really look out for. The market within which we operate is very, very dynamic. And you cannot live in oblivion. So a founder's ability to be very informed and not live in a bubble is critical for me. And I do find sometimes that we have a lot of founders who have taken an idea, but they have not really done the groundwork that is really, really required to understand the risk, the the challenges, the competition, just really understanding the market. And it's more than just a pretty PowerPoint. It's more than just saying that the market is X, Y, Z or whatever. So it's very, very important that I am convinced that an entrepreneur has done the number crunching to really understand the nuances of that business, the nuances of that market. How fickle are the potential customers that you're counting? What's their staying power to stick with you and not be swayed to something else? And who else is fighting for that same dollar, pound, or naira that you want to get for? So the business knowledge is very important. And that comes from, not being distracted, not being swayed by the next golden shining opportunity, but being very neck deep in whatever you're trying to do. And that would also give an indication of how much skin in the game an entrepreneur has. And I think as an investor, we look out for those little, indicators. How much skin have you already put in or are willing to put in? Because if you're trying to transfer all the risk to an investor, that seems to be a red flag. It's almost indicating that you would take flight as soon as the first wind of uncertainty comes. And we're living in a continent where, we're just unique in terms of, how the macro hits us. So it's very important that we are able to have a relationship that would give me an indicator of how deep you're willing to get into it and to be able to go around. I call it a roller coaster. And, I use this analogy. When you're on the ground, the people who are on the roller coaster all look like they're having fun. Everyone is raising up their hands and you want to get on it. But as soon as you get on it, you realize, it's full of thrills. So your staying power is extremely important. And on the way, you learn so much, and how you're able to apply those learnings is very, very important, because business is war. You need to be flexible. You might need to pivot. You might need to continually get your team to see the potentials that are going through. And your leadership skills will determine how far you go when it comes to seeking out investments, which could either be from angels or from VCs. Now, I've done quite a lot of angel investing as well, which initially in my early days were maybe out of passion. But just like Dr. said, yes, I've learned a little bit more. And life really is learning. But now as a fund manager and also the custodian of other people's funds, it's even more important. So what I would really be looking for, is how well prepared are you to seek the funds? And the due diligence is always revealing. It is always revealing in terms of the person behind the idea. How structured are you? How prepared are you? How do you organize things in such a way that shows or gives almost like a mirror of how you will run this business? And for me, the due diligence is critical. Now, that's not to say that you must have every single item that is expected on the books. I mean, that would be great, but it is how you approach it, and it reveals whether you're ready to run a business and be accountable and be, trainable and work with different teams, with your investors, with your co-workers, and the markets in general. So for me, preparing to seek funding, whether it's from an angel or from a VC, means you need to do your homework as much. And it suggests how structured you would be, because there will be very chaotic times on this journey. When investment comes in, it's never really for the short term, it's for the long term. And if we're going to be partners in this game, we really need to know who we're getting in bed with. And something I'm also very adamant about when it comes to founders is really understanding whether your business is asset light or asset heavy, to really know the kind of financing that you really should be looking for. It shouldn't just be any kind of financing, because you need to match the kind of financing that will be true to your business. Mismatches lead to a lot of pain on both sides. We've always heard it, trying to use short-term funds for long-term capital. If you're not really able to sweat it, if you're not really able to have a steady market, it's going to lead to a lot of unfortunate situations. So it's really important you really understand the kind of financing, the kind of people you should be talking to, and those who would really, really understand the business that you're actually getting into. Now, because of my background, I would call myself more an operator VC rather than an arm's length VC. And that's really because the operations is really where the magic happens. A great idea would never become a reality if it just stays on the paper. So your ability to get a team who would, turn the strategy or turn the vision into real products or real services that people will want. And like I said, creating markets even where you think there is no market is really your ability to dream, your audacity to even dream bigger and be able to convince others of what you need. So for me, I really look out for your ability to execute, your ability to implement, and even if it is prior experience, these would give indications of how well you were able to, exist in certain situations. And they would be indicators that I would definitely be very interested in. Now, without saying, I'm very passionate about women. And not just because, data just shows that, when women are involved, the diversity of thoughts, the diversity of approaches really just makes it very interesting. So personally, it's one thing I would definitely be looking out for, to have a diversified team that will be able to challenge each other in the most respectful manner, but be able to bring out the best when it comes to how to execute or how to hit the market or how to challenge the status quo. Because sometimes it could be very intimidating if there are big players and you want to enter the market. But, with that diversity of approaches, I have found, particularly women come with different perspectives that are always, very, very good when it comes to moving the needle forward. So what I would really be looking out in general is a team that can be very frank with each other, but still want to work as a team. Leadership is very important, but at these early stages, and because I play more at the early stage, it's very, very integral that you don't get carried away with the dream and are able to put your head down and get work done. And you're also very amenable to hearing perspectives, particularly from those who might have been on that journey before, but then be very confident to come up with your own suggestions. So the team is really the bankable asset, even beyond the solution. And what I've found is that sometimes there really isn't anything new under the sun. It's just your approach and where you actually want to or curtail that. Now, when it comes to funding, it's very important that your integrity is important. Applying the money to where it will actually yield results, and be ready to even offer the performance of how that money, what that money has actually done, even before you're asked. That will endear those who are on the bench or those who are thinking of potentially investing to make that decision. So it's very important that you are very happy to provide, updates, good or bad, and show what you're actually doing about it, rather than just showcasing, that there's a problem. So startups and founders need to subject themselves to a level of scrutiny, be very transparent, even when the challenges come, because you really don't know where that level of help would actually come. So for me, I may be new into the VC space, but this is going on over 30 years of operator knowledge of what works and what doesn't work. And I think the investment space is actually being rejigged in terms of approaches of how to invest and what to look out for generally. Nigeria is saturated with great ideas. What we need more of are those who can actually implement things, not just talk the talk, but really, really walk the walk and become, leaders within their own respective industries. So I'll pause here and let my fellow panelists also add to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mope. Another great session. Thank you so much. Mope was quite focused on execution, and your team, guys, your team, be visionary, have that audacity, and I'm sure you move high. Thank you so much, Mope. Attendees, if you have questions I just mentioned, please drop them in the Q&A. Just send the questions to us. Chris, hi, you're up next. How are you doing,
I got to tell you, it's actually really hard to follow both of those two individuals. You'll hear about, I'm going to share a couple slides tonight. You'll hear about my journey and all that stuff in the FI program. But I got to say this, I'm probably one of the most unlikely FI mentors in Africa. And if it wasn't for Miss Ajuma, who's right here, I wouldn't have had the journey I've had in the last couple of years to make an impact in Africa. There was an interesting television interview I was on years ago in America, and somebody was talking about the work that I do. I did a lot of things in communities across America to help. And they say, Chris Fultz says, you're not going to see him building wells in Uganda. He is focused here on the streets of America, changing things. And I never thought about that until years later. I was working in Uganda on projects that ultimately helped build wells. And the irony of that was shocking. So, I accidentally became a mentor a couple years ago in Founder Institute in Africa because somebody asked me to do office hours. And at the time, there wasn't global mentorship. People were just mentors in their country and perhaps their city. So I reached out to Mrs. Juma and I said, listen, I'd love to meet with this person and do office hours. And she said, no problem. We'll make you a mentor in our program. And she gave me an opportunity that changed my life. And what I realized is this, I serve as a global entrepreneur in residence at Founder Institute. I work in 12 countries in Africa, but, I work in 6 continents for Founder Institute. And there are so many things that are misunderstood about Africa. I have found the greatest innovations, the strongest willed minds, people with ideas, with vision. And I believe Africa is going to lead the world in the 2030s. I'm on record saying this on radio and television in America and all over the world. And there are some things that I've learned along the way that I wish I had known ahead of time. So normally I would get on here and talk about my journey. You'll hear that in FI. But tonight I wanted to share just a couple things I've learned along the way that I wish I had learned prior. And I'm calling these, is my screen sharing, Mr.
Yeah.
Jim? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
sure.
very much. These are some myths, rules, and truths, things I've learned along the way. Now, something I hear all the time from people, right? And it was brought up by these amazing presenters tonight, is people say, my idea is going to change the world, right? This is said so often in the startup ecosystem. And I immediately believe someone, right? I have hope. I believe anybody can change the world. I've seen it happen. But what I realize is that all of us share a similar obstacle when it comes to changing the world, right? It's universal. The biggest obstacle all of you will face when it comes to changing the world is going to be yourself, right? And it's because of things like myths and not understanding certain rules and understanding truth. And I'm going to get into a couple points about this. How do you get out of your own way in the startup ecosystem? I learned so much in Founder Institute when I became a mentor before I became a startup founder years ago. And I thought I knew everything that I needed to know about small business, right? I had a very successful PR firm in downtown Chicago. And then I realized I didn't know anything. I thought I knew, but I didn't know anything because the startup ecosystem is very unique. And that's what creates opportunities for people like all of you with unique world ideas that change the world. But the first step is you have to change the way you think pretty much about everything. When it comes down to funding startups, what actually matters to investors, there's a whole secret set of rules. So I wanted to share with you tonight a couple things that I've realized. You see, there are requirements for success in the startup ecosystem, right? And let me give you some perspective on this. Short-term success is fairly easy to get, okay? Short-term success just requires an idea. Okay. Once you have an idea, you just need something to hype, right? And when you have something to hype, you need a place to hype it. Somebody will come up with the product, go on social media, hype it, and they make tons of money and they win. But that doesn't mean the product's going to be good. That doesn't mean it actually solves a problem. It doesn't mean anything except that you had an idea, you had something worth hyping, you found a place to hype, and you sold it. But you see, for long-term success, this is when we start getting into different things. And I notice in startup founders, the difference between people that understand what it takes for long-term success, because there you need an actual solution, right? You've identified a problem, but you need a solution, right? This needs to actually work. But then you need a business model behind it, because the last thing customers want is a solution that disappears because the company didn't think about what it takes to keep the doors open. And then you need a large enough market, which means that the problem you're solving needs to have enough people in it for there actually to be a business that's sustainable. You cannot have a sustainable business model if your market's not large enough to sustain it. And you need to have outcomes beyond the hype. Because in this situation, not only do you need to win, but your team members need to win and your customers need to win. Because just for short-term success, I've seen plenty of companies that have put the worst product out, made a bunch of money, filed bankruptcy in America, and then they're the only ones that won. But for long-term success, that's an impossible venture. But to change the world, it requires a little bit more. You see, it requires vision. And when we get into the FI program, you'll hear all my differences between what idea and vision are. You actually need to solve a problem. You can't just have a solution. Tons of people have solutions, but does it solve the problem? And you need to have a plan to keep the doors open way longer than what it takes just for long-term success. Because if you're on a mission to change the world, there are different requirements. And one thing that nobody really understood, I was talking about this years ago. I'm like, I wish that we can get our competitors to support our product. And people thought that was ridiculous. But you see, if you have something that changed the world, you have to realize that even your competitors are your stakeholders too. And this is 3 wins: a win for you, a win for your stakeholders, and a win for the world. Now, here are the 12 common myths, and I'm going to go through this quick, that I've learned about startup investment, right? Both from being in venture capital world, from being in the angel world, from being an advisor, being in all these buckets, I've learned these 12 things. Myth number 1, it's not just about a good idea. Like, you need to have something beyond a good idea. Ideas are not worth as much as they used to be. Myth number 2, your pitch deck is all that matters. You see, I wish it was just a pitch deck. So many people at FI, we will teach you the best possible way you can to get your pitch deck in order for the way that your brand is set up, right? You'll learn all that. But you see, it's beyond the pitch deck. You need to have the narrative. You need to have the story. You need to have those truths, right? So even though you may not have your pitch deck yet as a startup, doesn't mean that you're building the fundamental things, because a pitch deck isn't everything. Sometimes you have people come in here and they have the greatest technical solutions on earth. They put every data point in there, but more data is not always going to be better, because some investors don't understand these things. And I've seen some of the greatest ideas fall short because they had too much data. So one of the things that you'll realize is you need help figuring out what's the right data at the right time. And, you know, this is something, and you'll hear my story if you're in the FI program, is people try to hide their weaknesses. But you see, it's really hard to hide your weaknesses. You see, I believe that you should embrace them. And if you know anything about my story, you'll understand that that's exactly what I did in my life. And for most startups, it's about relating to people, and everybody has weaknesses. And so did the investors. Everybody had to start over. Everybody had to do something. So as opposed to hiding from where you've been in your life, find a way to relate it towards the path that you're going. All investors are the same. You see so many people reach out to me and they're like, hey, I would love for you to, would you be interested in investing in my business? Like that's the pitch, right? And I go back and forth with some of them. Not all investors are the same, first of all, right? Some investors only invest in a company. I learned this in VC lab in certain countries, right? They're jurisdiction focused. Don't be upset if you reach out to people, they don't reply back because they just might not be the right investor for you. But I can promise you this, on your pursuit to find an investor, you want to find the right investor. Finding the right investors worth more than the investment in its own right. I promise you that. I've had the wrong investors before. This is one of the biggest things that is a misconception about startup space, that investors only care about profits. And make sure all of you take note of this. The startup investor does not make money off your profits. How the startup investor brings value out of their investment is by your value as a company rising from the point that they invested to the point that they exit. That's why you see some of the greatest companies that literally changed the world have yet to see profitability after a certain amount of time, because a startup investor is risky. They're willing to take the risk on things that have the long-term hyper growth models. Startup investors are not the same investors that will invest in brick and mortar businesses, because they're investing in things that have innovative long-term growth potential. Valuation is the only thing. I brought up valuation is the only thing that matters. This is very common. And I see it oftentimes in Africa. And I see oftentimes predatory investors taking advantage of it. And not on my watch. See, valuations that are set too high are oftentimes worse than a valuation that is set too low. Because sooner or later, your investors who only make money on that value growing are going to come after and change the dynamic of your company. So it's okay to be humble. At Founder Institute, I learned years ago that things like the safe investment system is the best way to do this, because you're not even setting a valuation at the beginning. You want to make sure you have the right valuation. And there are certain ways to do this, but don't focus on the valuation. That's not your focus. Your focus is on the customers. Your focus is on solving the problem. When you do those things, your valuation will rise. The only goal is to get funded. That is wrong. Okay, a lot of people come into this space and they walk around with their heads down because they've been rejected 500 times by investors. But you see, it's that 501st that mattered for them. Okay, funding isn't everything. And I like to use the analogy of the stonemason, you know, the people long ago that used to sit there and pound on rocks, you know, chiseling away all day long. And 130, 131, 132, the rock breaks. It would be foolish for them to assume that it was the 132nd hit that broke that rock. It was all of them that led up to it, in addition to that broke the rock. The same thing goes with funding. Pursue the big VC firms, and I want to make sure I'm clear about this. Venture capital firms fund specific things. Not everybody should seek venture capital funding at the beginning. I was lucky to write the chapter of a book that's pretty popular on Amazon, where we talk all about the different types of funding. Sometimes the best funders are angel investors. It's different. What I can tell you is this: the greatest funder of them all is customers. People confuse bootstrapping. People think bootstrapping is when they self-fund a company. When you self-fund a company, that's self-funded. What bootstrapping is that you're able to pursue customers, and the money that you bring in from your customers, you're able to use to reinvest into your company. That is the smartest path for anyone. Customers are always the best investors, but I can tell you there's probably about 30 different types of investors, and happy to talk with any of you about those during office hours. This is a huge myth, that every meeting that you have, the success is getting the check. Sometimes it's the feedback that you get in the room that's far more valuable than the check you could ever walk away with. Sometimes the check from an investor is the worst thing that happens for companies, right? It's about the right check at the right time with the right people for the right reasons. It's a combination. It's almost like math. right? But you see, it's a math of the heart and soul versus math of just the mind. So finding that happy medium is key. More money equals success. Sometimes the greatest thing I've ever seen happen in the startup world came off a $50,000 investment. Some of the worst things I've seen in the startup world were things that came with $500,000 investments. Do the math, right? So it's about the right amount of money when it comes to startups. And this is the last one I'll say. No means it's over. If I had to assume in the startup world that every single time someone's like, no, this is not a good investment. What you need to do is you need to listen and understand why. You need to change. You need to not give up. You need to go to the next room. You need to find the right investor. No does not mean it's over for you in the startup space. It means that you need to reevaluate it. I'm going to give you 3 rules I've learned along the way. These apply to life and they apply to the startup ecosystem. And I wish I knew this before I got involved. Rule number 1, everyone's going to face obstacles in the startup ecosystem. Okay. Everyone's going to face obstacles in life. First thing you do is don't blame others for obstacles. An investor and everyone else in life will look at this as that by blaming everyone for why you haven't got to your numbers, you don't have traction, you don't have this. By blaming everyone, you're basically taking away your ability to solve that problem in the investor's eyes and your team members' eyes and everyone else's eyes. You don't need to blame people in order to get around your obstacles. Rule number 2, well, if I can't blame anyone, then I'm obviously going to be the victim. Rule number 2 is you can't take the victim stance. Just because your competitor launched something and you think it was your idea. One of the greatest tragedies I often see is when people are upset when somebody else comes out with something in their industry. I think that's a gift, right? And what I'll tell you is this: there was a restaurateur that I worked with in the past, and he had a very popular restaurant, and all these other restaurants were moving around it. And I asked him, I said, Luigi, why? Like, are you afraid you're going to lose business because of all these other restaurants? And he sat there and he looked at me for a couple of seconds. It was kind of awkward. Like I was trying to take victim on behalf of his restaurant. And he says, it's the greatest thing because you see those other restaurants moving around here are making this a destination for restaurants and a destination for people that want to eat. And all we have to do is be the best at customer service, the best at food, the best at all of these things that they already were the best at. The other people help make the case that that's the place to go dine. And they went on to, even with all those other restaurants, be the top rated restaurant in the Chicago area, which is a hard accomplishment because he never took the victim stance. He saw everything as opportunity. And rule number 3, the most important rule, the rule why I'm even here in Africa, working with all of you. Technically, I'm in America right now, but I'm with all of you in Africa, is I see so many people spend all their time talking about what makes them different. Yes, of course, in order to be successful innovation, you need to have something that makes you different. We call them market differentiators, right? So that's required. But you see, I'm not asking you to look at this with your brain. I'm asking you to look at this with your heart. You see, it's not about what makes you different. It's not about what makes you different with your competitors or with your team members or with whatever. Investors and with everyone, it's about what makes you the same. So as opposed to spending all of your time focusing on what makes you different, you need to spend a lot of time focusing on what makes you the same. Your product solving a problem with your customers because they all are the same and having a problem. Your investors are going to relate and invest in you because they feel that something about your company and your brand is similar to something that they feel or they've done in the past. So don't just get hung up on that. The final truth I'm going to leave you with is this. So many people use the word authenticity all the time. And what I can tell you is so many people use one other word more than that. We're going to disrupt this space. I'm going to be the most disruptive brand that's ever been done. We're going to disrupt the ecosystem. Authenticity is the new disruptive, and authenticity means something, right? You know, authenticity means not being honest, not being truthful. That's being honest and that's being truthful. Authenticity is is living what you believe, presenting what is actually as you feel, right? As what you believe. Your brand needs to have authenticity. Your team needs to have authenticity. You need to have authenticity. Investors smell authenticity. And every morning I wake up and I know this, right? I ask myself one thing. Am I doing things for the right reasons? Am I in the startup ecosystem? Do I work with startup leaders? Do I work in innovation? Do I teach? Do I do these things for the right reasons? Because when you hear my story later, and you'll understand I question if I did. But one thing I know for certain is that when you do things for the right reasons, right, and you ask yourself this every day, things won't end for the wrong reasons. It's okay when things end. I've failed many times, but I've been successful more than that. But things that fail for the wrong reasons, that's sad, that's tragic. I'm afraid some of the greatest innovations of all times will be lost on the floor in some Abuja accelerator, something that can cure cancer, because people started it for the wrong reasons. They didn't care about being authentic. They didn't follow the rules that are out there. They played victim to the myths that exist, and they stood in their own way and became their own obstacle. Those are the only things I fear. What I believe in is innovation in Africa. I believe, just like was said at the very beginning, that what is going to be the greatest thing in Africa for African innovation isn't Americans getting involved. It's not more me. It's not Europe. It's not money from all over the place. Africa is the one place on this planet that I believe can solve every single problem that's inside the continent. Every continent faces a problem, and can actually be a leader for things everywhere else. And I believe too many places have slept on the innovation and greatness of across Africa, specifically right here in Nigeria. Nigeria has a PR problem in America, and all of you are the ones that have been solving it. And I'm so honored to be very proud to be part of all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Great intro from our panelists. So wonderful. Thank you, guys. It's having you guys here. It's always so. And wow. Now begin to look at the questions I actually prepared, and the questions I actually prepared are beginning to look like, Shego, keep your questions, get this other questions answered. Some of them are getting very personal. Somebody actually pointed out Dr. and says he wants your part. I thought to myself, that's consultancy. I'm not going to ask Dr. that question. He literally wants you to, to just dive into his idea and give him solutions. Hello, Walter, that sounds very, very much like a consultancy thing. I don't know, whatever it is. But I'm going to, the question on funding, pitch deck, and business plans looked like that has been answered. So any mentor wants, any panelist wants to talk to that. But I want to go next to a question from Mark Michael. And I'm going to push that question to Mr. Dr. Suleiman, if you don't mind, sir. Yeah. It says here, it is considered a red flag if a company is simultaneously offering a combination of funding options, such as the SAFE agreement, which is a simple agreement for future equity, also offering a convertible note and debt. That's offering all of them together. Specifically, could this raise concerns amongst investors? Is this a concern for you? Or is it viewed as a flexible financial strategy, as long as each option serves a clear and distinct purpose for the startup growth? So what do you think about that, sir?
Well, I personally don't see it as a red flag. I think what I will focus on is what they're raising the money for, the kind of investors they want, because the investor is just as important as the money. And therefore, having a proliferation of instruments out there, may give up the impression that all you want is money. Just want the money by all means possible, attract a very wide spectrum of investors and so on. For a startup, that is not, I would say that's not advisable. I would say the fewer the people you take money from at the beginning, the better. To get the show on the road, to get the project off the ground. Because what you're looking for is more than money. You're looking for the interest, you're looking for the passion, you're looking for the support, you're looking for the network, you're looking for the goodwill, you're looking for the advice of the people that give you money. People who really believe in you, believe in the idea, believe in the, in the possibilities, and are willing to walk the journey with you. So having too many instruments gives us the impression that you just want to get sucking as much money as possible from all manners of investors and so on. And that can create problems for you down the road.
Thank you so much. Great day. Yeah. Thank you so much, Doctor. Multiple funding, no, but it could also mean that you're getting too desperate. Okay, thank you. I know Chris dropped something there, so
Yeah, one thing on that I'll just say is this.
Also,
when it comes down to multiple funding, I couldn't agree more with the advice. There's one thing that's important to know. SAFE doesn't set a valuation, right? Some other things may set a valuation, a price found, a convertible note, depending on how you're doing the conversion. If you want something that doesn't set a valuation in this round, and you're also offering in the same to investors something that does, you have to make sure that these things could trigger actions in each other. So that's why generally in a round, all members are coming under one instrument. And that whether that's the leader of the round who sets that choice, that's great. Just make sure that you don't actually cancel out the other instrument along the way if your goal is to use that.
Thank you so much. Mope, this next one goes to you. I know you've done some things in the agro sector. So this is from Dr. Ona. He runs an agro-based market platform. And he has a question with like 3 bullet points. It says, what are the key metrics investors are looking out for in an agri marketplace startup? How do investors determine the valuation for a startup like that? And what is a typical investment range for this type of early stage startup?
Okay. With agric, first of all, it's very important that you, first of all, when you're speaking to investors, you are really able to allay the fears in terms of the uncertainties, the climate issues, and particularly here in Nigeria, we have some other nuances, like, theft and the rest of them. So it's very important that you're really able to allay the fears there. But what's very important with a GRIC is, who are your off-takers? Without having that clearly mapped out, it poses quite a bit of risk. So the off-takers are those who are really going to be able to give assurances that your agric produce would be able to go down that whole value chain. And the value chain in agric is very, it's actually changing. You could have a great product if your logistics is sour, it's going to, make a whole mess of it. Climate issues are very, very important. So you need to be able to hedge against those things. So the kind of indices you're actually going to show is, what's the yield, but more importantly, how are you really going to move it along the whole value chain? So depending on where you are in that value chain, you actually have the off-taker to address that. What was the second question?
Okay, the second part is we want to know, how do investors determine valuation for such data?
Well, with any valuation, it's really about, what you've done, what's the potential of that business. If you are new into the game, it might be a little bit difficult because you're still speculating. Depending on how long you've actually been running the business, you may be able to showcase your source of those who are actually your clientele base, your partnerships. If you're lucky to have had some kind of DFI funding, which actually, almost rubber stamps the ability of your business to attract international funding. All of these are very, very important to aid with your valuation. But just like we've said earlier, it's not about just having a number picked from the sky. It needs to be backed up with real evidences. No matter how great you think your idea is, I can bet you someone else is actually doing it. And your competition doesn't even necessarily need to be within your own geography. If you're an agric and you're still at the subsistence kind of farming, someone could come with technology and could wipe you out. So your valuation has got to be real, but it's the path that is more important. The kind of partners you have, which could not, it might not even necessarily all be in agric. If you're having partners in terms of insurance, off-takers, this really aids your valuation and shows, how you've thought of a 360-degree kind of opportunity for your business.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And the last one is, what is a typical investment range for this type of early stage?
Well, that's a very hard question to give without knowing the actual the actual business. The only thing I could say really is, if you're, I will just use the normal dichotomy of whether you're pre-seed, seed stage. Normally investments at the pre-seed will be anything up to 500,000 USD as a broad range, but obviously you have to be very specific about what you're doing. Seed stage will go up to, probably about 5 million, and then you start moving into the growth stage, which will probably be, your Series A and the rest of them. So without really knowing exactly where you are, it's a little bit difficult to tell, what kind of funding you are. But what's very important is don't take money that you don't need. From the day you actually take that money, there's an expectation. Investors are not investing in experiments. There is an expectation of returns. Everything else that goes with it, but that's the word. Investors are in it for what they're able to gather. They will support you. So when you're fundraising, make sure there are clear areas where you'll be making that investment that would actually yield the kind of expectations of your investors.
Thank you very much, Mope. Now, thank you so much. I'll move on to Chris. Now, this question is for you. It's from Sonny. It says, some ideas are meant to solve problems of a relatively small target group, but would yield high returns. For example, luxury items. With a measure of emphasis on the market size here, how do you develop such an idea from early stage to funding?
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's a great question. So it's, in terms of focus, right? Specificity makes it easy. In the startup world, when we look at things, there's, your total market, right? So in the perfect world, this is all of your potential customers that you are solving a problem for. Then you have this group that are below them. And that's where you start getting to more specificity. Here's that if I had all the funding in the world, here's the amount of those customers I can get. And generally it's about targeting them. So although you may solve a problem for women, or you may solve a problem for farmers or something of this nature, is your first customer that you're going after all farmers or all women? It's about finding the specific group that's large enough to matter, but small enough to attain. And that's where you generally go for, as was brought up just a moment ago, relationships. Relationships are people that already have all your customers. And oftentimes it's fairly easy to find these things. If you have an education project or product, and it's something that teachers would be using in a classroom, in your customer discovery phase, you're going to be identifying teachers. You're probably going to be asking 1,000 teachers, here is a problem that we've noticed. Here's a solution that we think. Do you think this will actually help you? And then based on those statistics and what you know about those teachers, you're going to be able to determine several things. Are there enough teachers, the person who's going to use your product, that find the problem that you have to be a problem they also have? Are there then enough of those people that say, hey, listen, I have this problem and it hurts enough in my life that I'm willing to take action? And then once you recognize that group and they're willing to take action, are they willing to take action and believe that your solution is going to solve that? Now that you've drawn attention to the problem and its pain point, do they believe that your solution is going to do it? And finally, after that, is your solution going to be something that's going to be easy for them to actually get started, or is there going to be a laborious process that's going to make them forget about the pain point again? Once you establish those things, you've whittled those group of teachers down to a smaller section of them. That's where you start. That's where you target, because once you solve the problem for them, trust me, they talk to the other teachers. Then you start preventing the problem for other people versus just solving it for the first group. And that's where growth happens. And that's where you get funded. So it's important when you're looking at things like luxury items and all this, realize this: in America, 68% of all decisions in commercial purchases and whatnot are made by females. Okay. Even a male's watch is influenced by a woman. Right. So most people think that they would target men because they have a men's luxury good product. Well, I can tell you, men don't really buy the Christmas presents in America for themselves. So the smartest advertising dollars go towards targeting women. It's about understanding the difference between sales and marketing is data and analytics, right? Marketing makes their decisions based on data and analytics. Understanding your customer, I can tell within about 5 minutes whether a company is going to be successful. And it's how well they know their customer. When they know their customer, the answer to your question is very apparent. They know the right small targeted group to go after. I'll help you get there.
Thank you so much. So I'll move back to Dotu. Dotu, I think if I don't ask this question from Walter Olo, it's going to hound me. So I'm going to find a way of rephrasing this question, and you're just going to help me see what you do about it. It says he would like to have your perspective on how it can bring an angel of VC capital into a proposed university. I'm not going to mention the name, which has gotten its authorization from the Nigerian Universities Commission to commence infrastructural development on the permanent site somewhere in the south-south part of this country. So how will it attract angel or VC fund into that proposed institution?
Well, I don't know. I know Walter very well, so and I know he's working on university projects. So, but university
so he tracked you here, sir. He tracked you here.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm sure he knows how to reach me anyway. But honestly, I don't think a university falls in the category of what we're talking about here. We're talking about startups and angel investing and so on. University is a major project. And whether you can consider those who invest in universities angels or so on is a completely different conversation. But clearly, what you're looking for are people who believe in your vision. Believe in the vision you have. Obviously, the university is set up to solve a particular need. Maybe there's a void in that part of the country. Maybe there's some void in some kind of specialty that university is going to be focused on that other universities are not attending to, or there's some product that are peculiar to that area that needs some searchlight and deep research and so on. So I think the starting point is who shares, the vision for solving those problems, and therefore are they willing to come with you on the journey? It's a journey, because investors, particularly the angel variety, are co-venturers. I mean, you might think it's all about the money. No, it's a belief in the subject matter, what you're about to do. And they support you with money, they support you with their time, they support you with their expertise, knowledge, relationships, and so on. So in the case of a university, therefore, which is a large-scale project, you're going to have to look for people who share the passion for the university. And it could also be a locational thing as well. I can assure you, a university somewhere in the south-south will most likely, in all likelihood, get support from people from around that locality. I think the chance of getting somebody from Lagos or Ibadan or Maiduguri to go and put money in the university in the south of the country is going to be a bit asking for too much. So I would say, therefore, the place to look for is people. So you have to espouse what the vision is, why you're thinking of university in the south and so on, how much it's going to cost, and what kind of help you need. And look for people who share that passion and create a role for them. The role could be, some people like things being named for them or named after them, for example. Maybe those are the kind of things that would maybe endear people to say, okay, let me join you on this journey. But in my own angel investing journey, university hasn't been one of it. Even secondary school is we talk, but university is a tall order. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. There's a question I'm going to bounce off the three panelists, but let me take the ones that are directed to some people. Team Signify wants to talk to Mokwe here. They said, Mrs. Mokwe Abudu, you spoke a bit about solution being bankable. Yes, I heard you. It says, can a solution achieve product market fit and not be a bankable business? Can you achieve product market fit and not be bankable?
Okay, well, you see, those two words, they're actually married together. Though I can probably imagine what he's thinking about. When we say bankable, there is a clear route to revenue. There's, and hopefully even that revenue would even become, profit at some point. And when we say bankable, it means, you are running an idea where customers have already been established. They're going to be large enough to continue making sure that the business is sustainable. So that fit, when we say product market fit, is really making sure that your solution or your product is fit for purpose for the market within which you're deploying it. And you will have customers coming. So they go hand in hand together. But yes, there are situations, particularly when we're talking more a different kind of investment, which is more on the impact, which may not have revenue as one of the tallest matrix that they're looking at. In terms of impact is more about what, how is it impacting the community, or what are some other indices that might be important. So it's still important that you're able to show the relevance and the impact, but it might not necessarily be always along the terms of returns or or profitability. That might probably be lower down the list. But I give an example. The new market, when we talk about the circular economy, used to be viewed as, there's really nothing to gain from it, because it's all about using waste and trying to clean up, and maybe that was the original aspect of the circular economy. But what we're finding out is that the creativeness is that we're even able to, with very ingenious ideas, come up with how this circular economy could still be bankable. Waste is now becoming a route to riches, so to speak, so long as you're able to creatively come up with a product from that area. So it might initially have been one of the areas where the impact kind of funding is. But if you're able to get product market fit for that kind of solution, you will be attractive to funders, be it banks, be it investors, be it angels, or the rest of them, if you're able to show a route to making money at the end of the day. Let's not mince words. Business is about an exchange of value. And you really need customers for it to be called a business. If it's not, it's a hobby.
Thank you so much, Mape. Okay. The questions, by the way, are rolling in. I mean, that's what happens when you have a great team like the panelists we have here. That's one thing FI does, bringing great guys, great minds together to help the ecosystem. Chris, Victor wants to know, you mentioned about authenticity disruption, and you explained that. He wants to know, what's the relationship between technology disruption for new startups and the opportunities for funding for e-commerce? I'm still trying to wrap my head around that question. I hope you can.
No, I totally understand. So the word disrupted, right? Like when people are saying like they're industry disruptors, that actually is rooted in something. It's not just like the textbook definition. It's a term of art. There was some mid-1996 perhaps paper from Harvard that came out with this whole disruptive innovation theory. And really what it means, right, to make it very simple, and this is what happens in technology companies. Companies get very large, like Amazon, places like this. And when companies get large, they become institutionalized. They forgot where they came from, right? Like you can never forget where you came from. And they do. And when they start doing this, they start caring less about certain stakeholders, or they start making in America what was once 2-day delivery, now 4-day delivery. In America, we have all these ridiculous problems where people will complain because they now get something 3 days delivered versus 2 days. But to them, they start losing customers left and right. And then some other technology company comes along secretly without anyone knowing about it and starts solving the problem for those people that have fallen off from Amazon, the ones that wanted their packages quicker or felt that they were being exploited at Amazon. And they're specifically addressing that. We're going to stop the feeling of exploitation and packages coming late. That's disruption by the actual Harvard business definition. Now, when it comes down to technology and the e-commerce space, the disruption comes in a different form. I recommend that all businesses at the startup phase do a lean canvas. You could probably find a free template online. It's 9 boxes, I believe, that basically help you separate out your story from problem to solution. Now, it's not just about filling in a box because it seems easy. It's about actually reading the requirements. Every problem that you have needs to match up with the solution that you have, and every solution needs to match up with the customer segment. You see, if you're not actually solving a problem for the customer, well, then you're not really being disruptive. You're not actually going to have a sustainable business. But you need to make sure that you don't try to be everything for everyone. The moment that you do that, then you're being the opposite of disruptive from the textbook definition, because you are being the solution for a select group of people is how disruptive brands grow. And then they sneak up next to Amazon, and pretty soon it's the one that everyone's talking about that's competing with Amazon. And it's not because they were any smarter than Amazon. It's just that they listened. They listened to where Amazon didn't listen. As opposed to reading all the glorious things and talking about what makes them different, they spent their time looking at all the bad testimonials people were putting about Amazon, right? Looking at Glassdoor and websites that tell you about what it's like working in Amazon and taking notes of Amazon's failures. And they were solving a problem based on that because they knew it was strong enough for people to go online and talk about it. That's being disruptive. It can be done in any industry, e-commerce specifically, because most reviews now in the world are somewhat fake. But you can see and tell a pattern. Read the bad reviews. Don't just focus on the good reviews. And more importantly, when it comes down to your brand, don't just sit and listen to people that say you're doing everything great. I spent a lot of my life in various leadership roles where it's hard to tell whether somebody's saying that's a good idea just because you're their boss or if it actually is. You don't need to surround yourself with just yes people to find success. You need to surround yourself with no people as well. You need to be challenged along the way. You need to listen to dissenters. You need to listen to the people that write you bad reviews, not just to defend yourself, but instead put yourself in their shoes. Because when you do that, then you can build a disruptive brand that's authentic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. The next question is from Pat Baturi. I feel his pain is into the agro sector, but I've heard this with a lot of founders, and it says here, I've been invited to different investment platforms, opportunities, and they always love the idea. And then they give him a task, and he carries out this task, and then what he gets next is silence. I mean, you get this opportunity to meet the likes of Dr. Suleiman, Mokwe Abudu, and Chris Ford, and they love your idea. They are smiling while you're pitching, and then they say, okay, do this, check this out, and you do all of that. Then you come back to them and submit that, and they say, okay, great, we'll get back to you. And next, you don't hear anything. I don't, Sources for Investors like a social event. Dr. What do you think these founders are doing wrong? From an investor's perspective, what are they doing wrong?
Well, I won't say they're doing anything wrong. It would seem to me that they're not talking to the right people. That's what I think. They're simply not talking to the right people. People who are genuinely interested in, again, the solution, the opportunity, and for some strange reason they can't tell him the truth about. Sorry, we're not interested. I mean, there's nothing wrong in saying what you're pitching doesn't fit with my investment philosophy or my area of focus or the scale at which I want to come in or the stage I want to come in and so on. I guess not everybody will have the whatever to tell you as it is. So I would say this person's problem is that he's not talking to the right people. That's the way I see it. Yeah.
Great. But yeah, that's a question I want to bounce off 3 of you.
So. Yeah, I mean, I have found really the due diligence is actually both ways. Startups or founders who are on their fundraising journey should also do a bit of due diligence on their prospective list of investors. Speak to those who may have got some investment for them. How was the journey? How how relatable were they? Do some background knowledge. Try and understand if it's an angel, or just be direct. What's your own personal thesis, so that you know whether you're just going down a route that's not really going to lead anywhere or not. But yes, it's not really honorable to keep people hanging. Investors should at least say a no. And just like Falls has said, sometimes a no might just be maybe no for now. It may be later. But at least, try and give that understanding, because guess what? Investors are always looking for the next big deal. It might just not be right at that particular time. But on the side of the founder as well, you don't lose anything by just, asking, could you let me know what exactly it is? And hopefully they may be able to write out. I have benefited, when I've been fundraising, when I got a no and someone did a complete, I think that was the most detailed feedback that I got. And it was a no, but I tell you, it turned around my approach, because maybe I assumed, they were looking for a particular thing and I probably had not address that particular area. So it's very important that you are tenacious in trying to get a feedback, but do your due diligence first. And if they're time wasters, just don't go down that route.
And Chris,
yeah,
you had to pick.
It's one of those things, right? One of the things you'll find out is not only do you not get replies, but you'll hear a bunch of different things from a bunch of different people that are conflicting, right? And then who's right? And the truth of the matter is this, right? I think the strongest, when I was a little kid, I used to get made fun of because I would always ask questions, right? And I would always be the ones, why, to everything, right? It's rather annoying when you're a little fat kid in America asking why to everything. But you see, that was something that now later in life is part of my profession, asking why. And just because I ask the why often doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask why as well. So, I speak in a lot of places and I'll do office hours with everybody I possibly can. But sometimes people reach out and ask a question. I'll give them a short answer. And then they'll take it as if it's gospel. And instead, what I want them to do, if they don't understand, is I want them to ask why. Just because I may be on one side of the table in the conversation doesn't mean I know everything. Doesn't mean I know your particular situation. I respect the people that ask me why. And I didn't realize until I met my business partner years ago. He's one of the leaders, as a matter of fact, of even Founder Institute's Silicon Valley program. And he is a prolific investor through his years, an MIT scholar, every possible bell and whistle, patents, the whole nine yards. And what I realized is I always thought that it was his answers that mattered, right? I would sit in rooms with them. We'd be meeting with our clients and people would ask questions and he would give the smartest answers. And then I realized after years that the most valuable thing about Russell isn't his answers, it's his questions, right? So take time to actually listen to their questions, right? And if you don't understand or you don't know why they're asking it, don't be afraid to ask, well, why do you ask that? Now, don't dodge. Try to give them an answer right away. If they move on, whatever. Oh, is there something I'm missing about this? Don't be afraid to be human, because you know what? Any investor that looks down on you for being that annoying fat kid in America I was telling you about, that was me when I was younger, that's not the right investor for you. That's not. If they're not willing to answer your questions, if they're not willing to take the whys, even if it pests them, chances are it's going to blow up down the road. And I've had that investor before myself. And it doesn't matter. You don't want them. So great question.
Thank you, Chris. Well, still moving on, tons and tons of questions here. I'll move on to Mr. Dr. Suleiman now. I know you've been in this space for so long. You've seen it all. I mean, this person wants to know, how important is social impact for a startup when an investor is making a funding decision? Should I really need to push my social impact data to you? Will it influence your decision, or is it just like you're wasting your time? What do you say about that, sir?
Again, goes back, there are different kinds of investors. There are investors that are in it for the money. Don't even, and they are not shy to let you know that they're looking for the next big thing, looking for multiples looking for 10x and 20x and so on. That's what they're looking for. There are investors that want more than that. They're interested in people, development, growth, learning, and so on. But there are investors that are also looking to change the world, society, make society a better, fairer, more equitable place, and so on. So again, it goes back to the point Mope made. You've got to do your due diligence on the person you are pitching your idea to. What are they looking for? Just like you are looking for something, they're also looking for something. Don't forget, it's a meeting of the minds. An investor is looking for something, you are looking for something. So it's a case of where your interest intersect. That's where there's agreement. So I guess, therefore, there's no one investor that wants everything. The social impact person may de-emphasize profits. I will tell you about the double bottom line. Make money, but not as much money as the money is everything. And there are those who do it purely for impact. They're impact investors. So again, for me, it's a case of what you want and look for somebody that can complement what you're trying to do and go to the right place. That would be my advice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Chris, Raphael wants to know this. It says, please, can you help me separate a startup from an idea? I'm very interested in creating a solution to solve a problem across EdTech. I have an idea in mind that can be developed into a product to solve the problem, but I want to separate it from the startup.
Got it. So first, let me just clarify the difference, because I see a lot of questions touching the difference between a new small business and a startup, right? So I think a lot of people use the word startup interchangeably. And really what it is a startup historically is a hyper growth exit focused company, right? Which means that the focus isn't necessarily on profitability, because none of them are going to be issuing dividends to companies, et cetera. The investors are riskier in the startup ecosystem. The standards and what they're looking at is growth, but that can be measured even with free customers, et cetera. Now, a new small business, right? Something that may have a brick and mortar product, a solution, a storefront, whatever, they're measured on a different scale. Matter of fact, it's oftentimes harder for them because they need to prove that they are running a sustainable business model before they often get money beyond the scope of their initial friends and family or people that directly believe in their vision. Now, moving on to what I believe the question's probably asking is, what's the difference between an idea and a vision? Because vision is what's required in the startup ecosystem. That's why even in Founder Institute, one of the first sessions we historically have is vision. And there's a lot. An idea is something that is generally abstract, right? It's hypothetical, for that matter. It's something that you can't measure if you're on your way to success yet. Now, when you transition over to a goal, I have an idea. I want to solve world hunger, right? That's not vision. That's an idea. It's great. I don't know anybody that doesn't share that support for your idea. So right away, people were like, yes, do that, right? But then you have to ask yourself, right? What's a goal? How do I know if I'm being successful? Because an idea without a measurable outcome will remain an idea. It'll never be a goal. A goal requires measurable outcomes. Well, startups also require measurable outcomes. So startups are more like a goal than they're like an idea. Now, the difference with vision and idea is that vision requires you to have forward-looking plans, right? Here's my pathway towards relationships. Here's my pathway of how I'm going to get customers. Here is my go-to-market strategy. I'll admit something. I did not realize I was named one of the top 100 CMOs in the world, ironically, with other people on the list being the CMO of Facebook and all this. And even during all that time, I did not know that GTM meant go-to-market. And I'm literally one of the leaders in that industry. I'm not afraid to admit that I didn't know that until I got involved into the startup world with tons of acronyms for everything. And so that's okay. The reason why I admit that is because there's going to be plenty of things that you don't know along the way. But you see, go-to-market strategy is something that is in your deck that's going to make an investor believe that not only do you have an idea that seems good. How do you know it's good? Because you've asked a bunch of customers. They said that this would be great. Now it's moving on to something that's actionable. It sounds like a solution. Once you have that solution, you're able to say, not only is it these 10 customers I asked, but here's how I know that 10,000 of them equals this amount of potential money. And then here's what I'm going to build to solve the problem. But not only am I going to build to solve that, here's the team members that I have that are necessary. In my opinion, team traction, then terms is what matters the most nowadays, because if you can't actually execute on your solution, that's part of your plan for customers, which is part of your idea, well, then none of that matters, right? Execution's where it's at. And a plan towards execution, how you're going to do it, those are all things that are part of the vision. All right. So now you can see what I would say the difference between an idea and a startup is a startup requires goals, it requires vision, and it requires a pathway to get there and execute upon it. Execution is more important. One executed strategy is more important than 10,000 ideas to solve homelessness.
Thank you, Chris. Mokpe, I'm going to shoot two questions to you. One is just a simple yes or no. Then the other one I'll read. Someone wants to know, do you invest in pre-seed stage startups? It's a yes or no. Pre-revenue stage. Do you?
Oh,
it's a yes or no. No.
No.
No. Okay, so he's gotten his answer. Now, here's the other question. Given the noticeable decline in investment funding for startups in Africa, particularly Nigeria, over the past 2 years, what do you believe are the key factors responsible for this downturn? What specific challenges or shifts in the investment landscape could have contributed to this reduction compared to previous years?
Well, first of all, whatever is happening around the world, Nigeria is not exempt from it. We're also bound to be impacted by world issues, the wars that have started out with Russia and had its own impacts, the inflation in some other areas. But even here locally in Nigeria, we had our own issues. In the past 2 years, there's been, unfortunately, should I say bad players, or, in that particular ecosystem where due to the the unsustainable kind of valuations that were happening, a couple of years ago, very bloated optimism that really, was going, haywire and was bound to fall, really didn't give the ecosystem a good rap. And obviously investors just became a bit more tighter. So less liquidity, happening across the world also had. But generally here in Nigeria, there's some nuanced issues. We don't have as many options for funding. Yes, the pension funds are there, but as agile as other countries, it could be better. Do we have as many angel investors in the true sense of investors? Not that many. And that's one of the reasons why I'm even in this business, because we need more local participation so that we can actually support our own, rather than constantly looking for funding from the foreign scene. It just balances it out. So, it's been a confluence of issues. But however, I actually look at it as, an opportunity to right what might not have been correct. Definitely, startups need to pay more attention to unit economics rather than expecting equity funding to be the answer to any particular issue. The right sizing of the situation has meant startups need to pay more attention to how they're going to get a continuum of revenue. Just like Fos says, the cheapest form of financing is your customer. If you didn't get that right at the very beginning, you would have found yourself in a very, very sticky situation. And I dare say you're able to come to the negotiating table with a bit more flair if you do have, that's in your back pocket. If you have that continuum of customers who are providing some level of revenue, obviously it might not be the huge amount. So there are so many issues in Nigeria in particular. We need to be a bit more detailed about how we execute. We've been saying that very importantly, because the magnet to attract investment is not just having a great idea. So there's been the worldwide macro issues. There's been local nuanced issues. Yes, we've had a stable government, but different things have truncated the flow of information, of capital into the country. Our policies sometimes have not always made foreign investors as comfortable. So those are things that are being worked upon in general. But does that mean things will not get better? I'm very optimistic with the mirage of opportunities that are within Nigeria, that it will still attract the right kind of investments. Matching investments to the right solutions is what is now critical, rather than just a free flow. What was happening was a lot of, should I use the local word, follow kind of investments that were happening then. Now investors are very, very critical about where they put their money. They're no more just taking with a good pitch. They would do their rigor to actually make sure that this is a business that will be sustainable. They will do their rigor on the founder as well, to make sure that the deployment of the money is as they said, and they're able to come out. They're probably even going to be held more accountable than before. So there is funding. It's definitely not as easy as it was, but it's actually making the startup founders to be a lot more detailed about how they use the funds if they're lucky enough to get the funding.
Can I respond to the first question that was
yeah.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Ms. Mope's answer on this. I do believe she invests in early stage companies. She's doing it right now, pre-revenue companies. Okay. And there's a big difference. And I think I'm going to add this to my myth list, right? I'm going to add it to there, that investment only comes in the form of cash, because that is probably the biggest myth of all time. And I'm going to tell you why. Right. All of us, work professionally in this world, right? This is what we do, so somewhere along the way, even if it's insurance companies, somebody's putting a value on our time. Right. And, it's important to realize that one of the strongest things that's going to come out when you have a strong pitch deck and a start in a company, you're going to notice a page on there that says advisors. Right. And that page of advisors generally comes from people that were mentors to you prior. In both categories of those people are investing time. And the only thing that's worth more than money on this planet is time. Nobody, you can be $1 trillion US company, and you can't buy me more time on this earth. And I'm not putting a value on my time at all. But who does put a value on our time? The investors that are looking at your pitch deck and see our pictures in it. Because when they see pictures like us in there as advisors, in which you may be paying a small fractional portion of equity, whatever you decide to do in your companies to do to get advisors, that's sending one of the strongest de-risking things to them. More important than if you got a $50,000 US investment is having somebody like one of these people that are on the stage with me today in your deck as an advisor, because that means they believe in you. And you can't buy belief. Belief is not purchasable, just like time. Okay. You can buy fake belief. You can buy the perception of belief. You can buy fake statistics that make people believe through misleading that people believe in you. But belief isn't something that can be purchased. And that doesn't come in the form of a check that may come from an advisor or a venture capitalist. So you need to think about investment different. Investment comes in many forms, and it's not just cash. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to make an apology to the attendees. Bringing together a team of panelists like this takes a lot of integrity. So when we tell them we're going to be done by 4, we have to be done by 4. If we don't get this done by 4, I'm not going to be able to get Mr. Dr. Suleiman anywhere near our program. So I would have to end the round table. at this point, then we'll move on to the summary. But before I do that, this question actually interests me for Mr. Dr. Suleiman. This person needs a lot of maturity in this. It says, what is the best way to communicate business challenges to stakeholders, investors, and customers? How do I communicate this?
The best way is the honest way. Just tell it like it is. Communication is very, very important, and it's truthful, honest communication the way it is. Bearing in mind that those who invest, even if they don't say it, they don't expect things to go smoothly or no hitches, no problems, no issues, and so on. That's expected. I mean, it's all par for the course in this field. I mean, it is not knowing. It's being surprised. It's things being shielded from you, not telling you the whole truth and so on. That's the problem. So for me, therefore, it's communication. You've got to be open, you've got to be honest, and it's got to be timely. Let people know if you have issues, lay it out. If you have challenges, lay them out. And don't forget, again, if you put the right group together, they are positioned to help. If they cannot help you, if they don't know there's a problem. And we have to bear in mind, like I said, the best form of capital you get is not, like Chris just said, it's not the money they give you, it's the time they're able to give you to devote to attending to you and help you solve problem, open doors for you, and so on. Or just the sounding board, they provide. So people you can go to, I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of that. What do you think? You get a perspective that'll be useful. So, and therefore, the best way, the best time is just say it as it is, honestly, in a timely manner, without hiding anything. I mean, I think that way you get more mileage out of the relationship than getting them surprised. I mean, for me, the biggest turnoff is the surprise of the negative variety, where you're having issues, and you can tell it. When people that used to call you every day or every week, every month, suddenly keep quiet, there's something going on. You can tell. So now if you have to then call and say, what's going on? But this is not a case of no news is good news. No news in this particular instance is bad news. Really, really bad news. And you make your supporters and your investors nervous if you keep silent. Because invariably, when people keep silent that way, they're hiding something. And for me, it's the worst thing you can do for yourself and your fledgling business, which I think with respect to your supporters. So for me, it's often, it's frequent, it's open, it's straightforward, and timely.
Thank you very much, sir. And so we'll come to the end of the discussion, and we'll take 2 minutes final word, closing remarks from each of our panelists. Permitting to start from the lady, Ms. Mukwe Abudu, and then Chris Foltz, and then we'll wrap up with Mr. Dr. Suleiman. Thank you. Closing remarks.
First of all, if you've decided truthfully to be an entrepreneur, one thing that I would encourage you to do is enjoy the ride. Now, the ride is bumpy, it has twists, it has turns, but I tell you, if you are able to get to the end, success is really, really sweet. But on that journey, pick up very good elements of advice, support, good networks. Your network is so huge in terms of your social capital that can come in at different points of your journey. Whether it's colleagues or experienced mentors, extremely important that you increase your network to at least bounce ideas off. But very important, you really need to be focused. Entrepreneurship is not about jumping in and out of the car. The more you create your depth in that particular area, the more you would understand it. And as much as those challenges come through, if you are a person who can actually, have an eye to really see the opportunities, even in the midst of challenges, you could actually make, great successes out of it. So I will encourage you, even though times are tough, entrepreneurship is what really makes the world go round. In Nigeria, particularly, the GDP is really, funded by you, the entrepreneur. So it's important that you stick it out. Funding is important, but get your ducks in a row. Don't put it at the very beginning. Make sure you actually have something of value to attract that funding. And be very, very prudent with how you spend it. It's very easy to spend, but it takes a long, long time to get it. So I'm available to speak to anyone. I think my LinkedIn has been shared. That is my lifeline. I am constantly in contact with entrepreneurs. That's what makes me happy. And, I'll look forward to it. Thanks for your attention today.
Thank you. Chris Pauls.
Well, as you all can tell, I'm fairly American, which means I have so many words to say. And oftentimes it's hard to figure out what to say at the end of something like this. And, what I can say is I have a bunch of advice as a startup founder that'll help you along the way. But what I think matters more is advice I learned about life that applies directly to your startup journey. And there's these 3 rules that I basically function by. I don't talk about them often, but I function by them. Rule number 1 is never forget where you came from. And I think that this is often overlooked, right? Even in your startup journey, you started somewhere with a problem that you identified. Some of the greatest founders are solving problems that they face themselves as a human. Statistics prove that, not just some person on a panel today. But you see, if you forget where you came from, somewhere along the way, your brand starts losing its integrity. It starts losing its differentiators. It starts losing its soul. And that's noticeable. You lose customers to everyone. And more importantly, you don't, no matter how much money you make, lead a satisfactory life because you forgot where you came from. Rule number 2 that I live by is don't lose sight of where you're going. All right. It's very easy to do this in the startup ecosystem, just like in life, right? Things fall apart every single day. People don't show up to meetings. Deadlines are missed. These are all ways to rationalize why we forget where we're going or we give up and the moment that you forget where you're going, you probably already forgot where you came from along the way. So it's important to never stop revisiting that first rule because that's what gives you the motivation to keep going on the path that you're going on. And rule number 3 is don't spend all of your time just celebrating victories. I see this happen all the time. It's very important to recognize victories. It's very important to recognize your stakeholders, your team members. It's very important to recognize accomplishment. But if you spend all your time celebrating victories, it leaves no time to react to your failures. Not just your own failures, but failures of the system, failures of your competitors, failures that your customers face as well. If we spend all of our time celebrating victories, we will spend no time reacting to failures. And I promise you that all of our legacies and yours are built upon how we react to failures, not just how we celebrate victories. So I encourage all of you to apply those rules to your own life every day. And if anything, that's what allows you to wake up every single day and ask that question I drew attention to earlier is, am I doing things for the right reasons? Because if you do, they won't end for the wrong ones. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you, Chris. And finally, Dr. Suleiman. So.
Well, it's been a pleasure, sharing ideas and listening to my co-panelists and, of course, tackling some of the questions I've heard and so on. I think one point I need to make, and that is, it may sound surprising, but not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Sometimes I get the feeling that it's become almost a buzzword. It's become, the flavor of the moment. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and so on. A large part of that is due to the fact that there's a paucity of employment opportunities in our economy, which in service, which of course will be solved by entrepreneurs, creating jobs and creating those opportunities. But not everybody is called to be an entrepreneur. A lot of those who come out wanting to solve the entrepreneur, wanting to be the next Mark Zuckerberg and all that kind of thing, are not prepared for it. I think there's an element of training that's required to be an entrepreneur. And therefore, my advice always is be prepared. You work for somebody, work in an organization, work in a structured environment, get a bit of maturity under your belt, know what you are signing up for before you launch out. The second point I'd like to make is that I mean, it's very good to talk about entrepreneurs who have an idea. Number one, the idea, like I said, it's got to be bankable, which means it's got to have a large enough market. People are willing and able to pay for it. It's got to have growth in it. But most people who are investing don't want to invest in a passion business, business that pays your bills and where you would live out your fantasies and so on. They want something that has the capacity to grow. And therefore, so make sure you have a good idea, but more than that, which is where preparation and maturity comes in, is execution. One thing I've known, at least based on my own experience, is that there are tons and tons of ideas out there, but when it comes to bringing it to life, you find that you're not prepared for all the surprises, all the booby traps, all these failures of the infrastructure deficiencies in Nigeria. It's tough. I mean, entrepreneur is a very, very tough journey. Not everybody is caught up for it, but if you think you are, my advice would be get prepared. Read far and wide, talk to successful entrepreneurs, talk to those who have tried and failed, because there's also a lot of learnings to be had from failure. I've learned a lot of lessons, from my own journey, trying to help people get businesses off the ground and so on. For example, I've learned that B2C is much, much tougher than B2B. I mean, we thought any idea was an idea, but B2C is tough, very, very tough, and it requires money, it requires stamina that maybe we're just not caught up for. So those are the things I would say is preparation. Yeah, and bear in mind that be true to yourself. The fact that somebody has done it, who is an entrepreneur? You have to know that you have the attributes of an entrepreneur. I mean, you've got to have a can-do spirit. You've got to be a detailed person. You've got to be a team builder. You've got to be a honest person. You've got to inspire confidence of those who are working with you, who are funding. I mean, there are so many elements that go into it that I don't think, a lot of people who put themselves out there are prepared for. And one fundamental conclusion I've come to based on my own experience is that there's actually far more capital out there looking for, good ideas to back than their ideas. I remember in the early days of Lagos Angel Network, we listened to tons and tons and tons of pitches with checkbooks ready, but no checks to write. So for me, there's a lot of work to be done. But like I said, this country is yet to be built, and it's going to be built by Nigerians, and we'll have to step up to the game. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my insights this afternoon, and I look forward to further engagement.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, panelists. It's been a wonderful session. I'll hand over back now to the Managing Director, Mr. Juma Ataguba, for closing and all. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. It's been such a wonderful afternoon listening to the panelists and also the Q&A. We're indeed very, very grateful and honored. There's just been so much learning. It's unending, and I only wish, we don't have the time, but this is one hot topic that, you could go on and on and on, but it's been great, awesome time. And the participants, we've had 78. That's a large number. We never had this number before, 78, and most of them have stayed right through, so we hopefully will be doing more of these sessions. But the truth of the matter is there's still so much to learn. Mr. Dotton has told us about the need to train. So about fundraising, you can't learn about all of it in 1 hour, at a webinar such as this. It's just to, highlight tips, and ideas and strategies. So we have a funding lab. Founder Institute has a funding lab. which is an accelerator program that runs for 3 months. So if you're at traction, you have some traction, built an MVP, then you qualify to go to that funding lab. And for those who have questions around their idea stage, or they're about to launch and they're talking to investors, no responses yet, you need to go through our core program, where your ideas can be validated, vetted and validated, and then you become fundable. So that's how it works. You need to go through the startup school, and that's what Founder Institute, presents to you through the core program. And then once you're done with the core program and there's a need for you to fundraise, then you go on to the funding lab and also learn the nitty-gritty of fundraising. And then we also have the FI Venture Network, which is a network of investors where you can now, introductions can be made, to investors who are interested in backing you. So the entrepreneur's journey is a long one. So you must have a long-term perspective. You've heard that from our panelists this afternoon. And so you need to have the heart for it. You need to have the right temperament or persona for that. As a matter of fact, we have what is called the entrepreneur DNA test. So before we admit you into a program, you need to take that test. And it's those who are successful at that test that are, finally enrolled in the program. Now, you need mentorship, you need guidance, you need advice. And so our program is that which helps you do this successfully, because we work with mentors who handhold you. And these are CEO mentors, like we have 3 on the panel today. So imagine that for the next 4 months, once you join our program, you are going to be getting their advice. Because at the stage you're at, the startup stage, your business cannot pay, this kind of fees. But the beauty of it is, they have a listening ear, and then they can help you tweak and build and refine that idea, so that you're not building castles in the air, and you're working definitively towards something that product or idea or business that becomes sustainable. So it's not just about the idea, and it's just not just also about raising money. So these are all the different aspects that is involved in building a solid business. And the platform we have for you, you can achieve all of this through the Founder Institute. And so we're very, very delighted to, be of help to the startup ecosystem. We have a country to build, and you can see the passion with which, everyone, all of us on this panel this afternoon, you can feel it. We have a country to build, and it's going to be built by entrepreneurs, built by Nigerians for Nigerians. Founder Institute was built by founders for founders. So it's the right place to be, it's the right network to plug in. And we're going to appeal to the legend, Mr. Dr. Suleiman, to give us some time during the next cohort mentoring sessions and office hour sessions. We're going to be on his back. We succeeded in bringing him onto the panel this time around. And so we're going to try to extract more time from him so that some of you can benefit from this very, very wide, his counsel and expertise. We already have Mokwe mentoring, we have Chris mentoring. We have a global network of mentors, 35,000. FI Abuja has about 200, and these are all top experts. So what you want to do is to plug into the network. And so you can see on the screen that we have admissions open, the deadlines are on. So you click on the link and you go there and register and you join and build that amazing company that you want to build with the right resources. So it's been a very, very, very great pleasure once again having everyone here, and we're very grateful to you, our panelists, and we're also grateful to the participants, attendees who have, been on this, joined this event this afternoon. Thank you so much, and God bless Nigeria, and do have a great afternoon and evening, rest of the day. Goodbye now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye,
Everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
so much.
So yeah, I'll see our next upcoming events. In the month of October, we're going to have a month pitchathon. These are pitch marathon sessions. So we're going to be starting with the pitch boot camp October the 2nd, and then we're having a special one for creatives. So if you know anyone who is a content provider, who is in media and entertainment, we're going to be having a pitch event for that sector. And then also any startup building ideas around artificial intelligence, we're going to also have a dedicated pitch event for them. So share this link, share the information. We've dropped the links in the chat box already. So 2nd October, 9th October, 16th October is our pitch marathon month and sessions. So do join us, and we already have a lineup of top experts, in the who will be joining us and providing guidance and reviewing the pitches. So that's it for now. So do register or share the links for the events, and we look forward to seeing all of you. And we'll also share the link to this recording, if you want to have time, reviewing the recording once again. Thank you. Mm. Okay, Mr. Shegun, thank you. Mm.
Hello.
Yeah, okay. We're just waiting for, the other participants. There are still some,
Okay, okay,
about five to leave so that we can do a wrap up. Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so Shegun. You should pause okay, the recording. Remove? For this is for this meeting. Okay. Remove. When you click